And okay. So welcome to my class now that we're recording officially. I'm Elizabeth, and I've been playing Psaltery for probably 6 or 7 years at this point, and started on just a little toy Psaltery. I call this a toy, but you can play it like a real instrument. Um, and I have collected quite a menagerie of instruments since then. And I'm going to answer a few questions that have come up in the chat. The first question is, what's the difference between a hammer, dulcimer, and a psaltery? If you actually go historically, there's a lot of overlap. Really, it's just, the simplest definition is how you play it. So, for example, this is my kind of bigger psaltery. And let me see. One of the tricks of this class is getting camera angles correct. So I apologize for that. So I would call this a plucked psaltery, and you can play it with your fingers. And we'll talk also about position. So you can play it with your fingers, you can play it with a pick, or you can play, these are modern dulcimer hammers, and you just can play it. You can play a little melody with hammers. Now, this is a little more difficult. The strings are kind of close together, and it wasn't really designed for that. Modern hammer dulcimers. Oh, this is my modern hammer dulcimer, which is a whole lot bigger. You typically play it with a stand, and it has bridges that allow, you can play a note on either side of a bridge, and so your string now has been subdivided so you can play more notes. This also allows for more chromaticism, which we'll get into what that means in a little bit. But this is, typically you play it on a stand, not on your lap, but so you play that with hammers, and has a very, very nice, lovely sound. Again, this is a more modern instrument, so it's going to have a bigger, fuller sound, more complicated construction.
There was a question, were those octaves apart?
They're a fifth apart.
So each string's a fifth apart?
Across the bridge, yes. So you probably can't see it too well, but this is one string that goes over this bridge. And that's a fifth. And then if you play the string on the opposite bridge, it's a fifth as well. So anyway, I'm going to try not to get too much in the weeds since this is not a hammer dulcimer class. But this is a hammer dulcimer. This is another instrument that has a long history. Different cultures have different versions of the hammer dulcimer. And again, that's kind of the American, maybe Western European layout. There's also Eastern European and Chinese and all kinds of different dulcimer type instruments. But they definitely
are. Is the mountain dulcimer period?
Excuse me?
Is the mountain dulcimer period?
So yes, this is a nomenclature thing. The mountain dulcimer is a completely different instrument that I don't play. But I get a lot of questions on it because I play dulcimer.
I can answer. It's not period. It's not period. The mountain dulcimer.
It is related. So they're related to an instrument called the Schleitholt, which is very similar. It's a long box with a fingerboard that's probably diatonic. Again, I'll go a little bit into what chromatic and diatonic means. But the notes, it's usually a box instead of like a curved shape. And but it is a related instrument. I would say if you brought a mountain dulcimer to an SCA event, I think that's pretty close to period type instruments. I personally would not be upset with a mountain dulcimer in an SCA, but it's not strictly period. If you want to buy a strictly period instrument, these instruments would be closer. These psalteries that we're talking about. And another off-topic conversation, there is a mountain dulcimer maker who makes a Schleichholt for what I consider a very affordable price. I think it's maybe like $250. June Apple dulcimers. Anyway, if that's something you're interested in. Again, dulcimers, those types of dulcimers are going to be outside the scope of this class. And another question that comes up a lot is, what about bowed psalteries? I do not have an example of a bowed psaltery with me because I don't play it. It's usually a long triangle that's skinny, and you have a bow and you play the strings. That is very much a modern instrument. It was created in like the 19th or 20th, maybe even 20th century. Anyway, if you like it, it's a great instrument. Unfortunately, it often gets advertised by people as a medieval instrument. And it is very much not a medieval instrument. It's very different than what we're going over today. And so I'm not going to be going over bowed psalteries. If that's why you showed up, I apologize. But consider taking up the plucked psaltery, because it is a very fun, easy instrument. And if you already know how to tune bowed psaltery, you've done the most difficult part, because tuning a plucked psaltery will be similar. Okay. So what is a good and expensive psaltery? And pictures. So, okay. Yeah, let's just go into how to find a psaltery. Let me look at my notes. So my intro was really, okay, historical background, their period, they come in all different shapes and sizes. They are not a standardized instrument during our period. I would have said, well, in some sense, in these forms that we're looking at, these kind of fell out of favor during the Renaissance. However, in Italy and Spain, there was an instrument, it kind of evolved. In Italy and Spain, it kind of turned into an instrument called a salterio. And this actually ended up being a trapezoidal instrument with bridges, kind of similar to the hammer dulcimer, except it was plucked. And then in Germany, it became more popular to take that instrument and play it with hammers. They called that a Hackbrett. That's the German style of dulcimer. And in fact, there are still Hackbretts played in Germany. And the salterio that I discussed actually is a popular folk, I don't know how popular, but it's a folk instrument in Mexico. So if you want to hear modern salterio music, you can look at Mexico. So that's kind of fun that the instrument did evolve, and a lot of people will say, it's kind of died out. But it really didn't die out. It went different directions, which is cool. Not
if we wanted to look up those two instruments you just talked about, the sackbut, and how do you spell those?
Yeah, let me put that in the chat.
Thank you.
So,
And while you're doing that, would you rather us wait until the end and go over the chat questions or interrupt you?
I'm okay with interrupting
Okay.
because you might want clarification on some topic that I'm going over.
Okay.
And especially when I change the camera angle, it'll be good, Delphina, for you to kind of make sure that I'm keeping on top of that.
Okay.
What was the other one I mentioned? Oh,
the German one,
Hackmeret. Sounds so German. And I mean, so one of the fun things, and
excuse me, I'm not seeing that. Did that get sent to everyone or accidentally to maybe
I'm just sending it to Sean Elwood. How did that happen? Okay.
He was the last one who commented, and so your next comment went automatically to him. That happens sometimes.
They can. Psalterio. German. I can't type German. Dulcimer equals Hackmeret.
Thank you.
Class that I sometimes teach, which is ethnic psalteries around the world. So this is kind of turning into that. There's also a Middle Eastern psaltery called a kanun. This can be spelled like several different ways. And I'll just put that in the chat. Middle Eastern psaltery. Kanun. 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 It's fun to... Yeah, and that's a good point. Helene made a comment. Is it Helene? I may be mispronouncing your name. I apologize.
It's Helene. It's
okay. Thank you. And that really it's a very easy to go from this instrument where they started plucking, then they started hammering, then they started adding keyboards, and then this eventually evolves into our modern piano. So, which is great because that's actually my instrument that I grew up playing. So I'm very fond of the piano, and it has translated down to the past, and I'm very fond of the plucked psaltery. I think I have answered all the questions in the chat at this point. Well, no, yes. I haven't. We were going to talk about where to get a quality instrument. Now, the comment was made, the music maker psaltery as the baseline. There is a confusing thing about psaltery brands is there are two brands called music makers. And the music maker brand eventually, so I've got my little Eastern European psaltery. You can see the Cyrillic writing on there. But these psalteries were also evolved into what we call the music maker brand, and sometimes it'll have more English style. But I think they're the same brand. And these are good psalteries. I really like these. This particular one's not in tune right now, so I'm not going to play it for you. But this is a solid option. Now, there's another company called Music Makers that makes this psaltery. The website is harpkit.com, and you can buy this in a kit form and build it yourself at home. This has a lovely sound. I have particular issues with the construction method in some ways. I think it makes for not the most stable instrument. Mine was secondhand and falling apart when I got it, and I've had to rebuild it several times. My advice to you is if you get one of these, either buy it pre-made or make sure you really put it together well. lots and lots of clamps and good glue, and maybe help from a friend who knows about woodworking. I'm not a woodworker. I don't think this is a difficult woodworking project, but be careful, I guess, and make sure that you have a stable instrument, because when you have so many strings, it can start warping the instrument. So yeah, when we're saying what are we using music makers as a baseline, if this is my baseline, this is a good instrument. I like this. I also really like the TK O'Brien lap harp. And I believe that Goldward has one. There's a slightly upgraded model. Yeah, there you go. He's got more of the curved shape. They call that a hognose psaltery, because if you're creative, it kind of looks like a pig's nose, apparently. I don't know. So again, and you get 16 strings with that. Most of these are going to be 15-string harps, and I call it harp. Psaltery is also called a lap harp a lot of times in America. So if you want to find something, Google search lap harp, and you might get some better results. But yeah, if the TK O'Brien, oh yes, is a very good brand. I would say probably the upper end of these kind of small, these little small psalteries. I think it has a kind of brighter, nicer tone, slightly more than this, but they're really comparable. In fact, it could just be a personal preference. Another person mentioned first act lap harps. Do we have a question?
I was just going to say, I put the easy play instruments. That's what do our Craggy Mountain music, where you can get the TK O'Briens.
Thank you.
That's
Wonderful.
the link. That's the link to get them.
Yes. Thank you. So one of I was going to say the first act lap harps are very nice. They no longer make them, so you would have to buy it secondhand. The only downside is that the tuning wrench you can use a standard tuning wrench, but it's a little loose on the pins. And anyway, but it will work if the first acts come with a tuning wrench that actually tucks inside the instrument, which is really cool, but they also get lost a lot, and then you can't buy a replacement because they're no longer being made. But you can use a modern tuning wrench. One thing I will suggest, if you are buying secondhand, calculate the full cost. Think of the full cost of the instrument. Assume you will have to replace the strings. Being about $1 a piece. And most of these have doubled strings, so you'll have about 8 strings that you have to buy. You may be able to buy them cheaper in bulk, whatever. But and if you wonder about the size, you can go to local music shop. Even if they don't have a clue what this instrument is, they probably can measure the size of the strings and sell you a replacement that's the correct size. Most local music shops should be able to do that for you. And
are they metal? What are the strings? Metal or
yes,
nylon?
they're metal. They're just a standard steel unwound string, so that you can get in any music shop. It's nothing special. So one thing I will also mention is these pins are called zither pins. They're like a little square. You do have to have a special wrench to use these, but I highly recommend, if you're buying secondhand, to get something that has zither pins. Your tuning will be more accurate and more stable with zither pins in general. Now, you can get a dud instrument where the pin's loose and it won't hold a tune. That's the risk of buying secondhand. I used to have a little first act harp, and one of the pins was just loose, and that was just life. So that string wouldn't hold a tune. And there may be ways to repair that. It's kind of is what it is. This is another brand, Ansteorra mini harp. Mine doesn't have strings because it's difficult to restring. You can kind of see that this does not have zither pins. This has bolts. This just has screws. And this is kind of a shoddy made instrument. And I don't really trust this. This is going to be very painful to get the new strings on. It'll be hard to keep in tune. If you have an option, go with zither pins. Now, if someone gives you one of these, sure, go for it. A lot of people have success with it. Another one.
Sean asks, are those sharps and flats on the former harp?
Are those sharps or flats? I'll go into tuning after finishing up this part about getting started.
We'll look for that then. Thanks. Oh, keys, as in sharp keys on the real harp.
Yeah, I'll go into tuning.
Cool.
I think the short answer is no. And this is another one with like a weird bolt system that tunes the strings, and it's incredibly hard to restring. Again, if you can find one that has zither pins, that's my recommendation. Okay, wow, we spent a whole lot of time on this. So what else you need? You need a tuning wrench. So you can get little ones like this. Get an Google search auto harp tuning wrench. Shelby's showing one that comes with the harps. It's just a piece of stamped metal with holes in it. So I do not have one like that. A lot of people don't like those because they're kind of uncomfortable to use. I'd recommend like wrapping it with maybe tape or cloth or leather to kind of give you a better grip. You can also get T-style. This came with my dulcimer. This is a really nice one. But it's got a little star shaped hex as opposed to a square.
Lisa's showing pliers. Thank you.
I do not recommend pliers. Put your pliers away. Do not use your pliers on your instrument. No. These are like $5. Get one. This is an auto harp tuning wrench.
I have one of these. The outer zither pegs have gotten a little bit stripped, and this
probably because you were using your pliers.
No, I was using no. This is my poor tragic little guy that he was fairly okay until one of our military moves, and the movers packed it in a box with something caustic, and when I unpacked it, all the strings had rusted completely through. And so we had to restring them. And so there's a little bit of residual rust on the zither pegs also. And the outside pegs just look at this and laugh in scorn. So I have to use sterner methods with the outside pegs.
So unless extreme circumstances, please don't use pliers on your instrument because you will cause the issue that Lisa's talking about. Where you misshape your pins and it no longer works. The star-shaped driver, which you probably can't, you can see, there you go, is better. This is a much more expensive tuning wrench. You'll probably pay like $20 for this, which is close to what you can spend for a whole instrument. So since it's a cheap class, I'm not going to say you have to get this. But if you have particularly difficult pins, maybe the star shape will be more forgiving of slightly distorted pins. And that's another thing to look at if you're looking at a used instruments. Are the pins all distorted and stripped? Are there cracks in the instrument? Are there separation between the wood pieces? Again, I got this instrument secondhand, bought it online, and it was falling apart. I've had to rebuild it several times. I'm not trusting this instrument to have a long life. unfortunately, because it sounds really pretty. So that's kind of going with toy psalteries. More expensive psalteries. The only one I have is this one, so I can say it sounds good. I'm not a huge fan of the design. I like the shape. It's really just a trapezoid with a false hog-nosed front, but it is what it is. It sounds nice. It's a good size. It has good volume. And it's an octave lower than these other little psalteries that we've been playing. Okay, I need to go into some other things. So you need a tuning wrench, you need an instrument. When it comes to tuning, it's going to take a while to get used to tuning. This is not a geared tuning like your guitar or whatever, where you can just turn forever. And you know, this is like a 1-to-1 ratio, right? And it takes some finesse to just get used to tuning. Also, new strings are going to take a while to break in, or old strings that haven't been tuned in a long time. Be patient with yourself and your instrument. When I put new strings on an instrument, I tune it like 5 times in a row, one after another, before it vaguely still holds a tune. And then I'm tuning it multiple times a day for a couple weeks before it holds a tune. So don't think, a lot of people get these little instruments and they're like, this is a piece of crap, it won't hold a tune. Sorry, I don't know if that was an inappropriate word, but this is not a quality instrument, it won't hold a tune. But do keep at it. You're training yourself, you're training the strings, they will have some stretch, and it will most likely stay in tune eventually, even if it's a cheap instrument. Sometimes you get bad luck. If you tune it and then it immediately just detunes, it's probably a loose pin, and that's just, it is what it is. So look up auto harp tuning wrench. I'm going to put that in there because this is not, you can't get something out of your driver set that will fit this. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about playing this thing. And let me see. Oh, you'll also need you will also need a tuner. You can get a clip tuner that clips on your instrument, and then it tells you what note it is. So these are super nice. Oh, you can kind of see it's doing something. Okay, but you can also download an app on your phone to tell you what the notes are and get you in tune. So tuning is really the hardest part of this instrument. What to play it with? Oh, I forgot my feathers. So historically, okay. Okay, how do we play this thing? Let me get the camera down. The first question is, how do you hold it? Easiest way, just lay it on your lap and pluck it. You can also lean it up against your chest or your belly, depending on the size of the instrument.
And the size of your belly.
And that's kind of gives you a little more volume because it's pointed towards your audience. If you're playing this, the direction of the strings, I'm going to say, is a personal preference. In Eastern Europe, they actually play with the lower strings down. And in most Western European art shows it with the high strings down, or rather, I like to say, because this is kind of a natural position from here. If you're going to play the other way and you want to lay it on your lap, you'd have your low strings here. So a more Eastern European style, your thumbs would be near the high strings, and Western European, your thumbs would be near the low strings. I'm going to do the position with the thumbs near the low strings. Again, it's your personal preference. And so that's that. And now I'm going to, another way, a lot of times, if you ever watch my YouTube videos, I will play with it supported on my arms. There is a lot of artwork where psalteries seem to be floating in front of people's bodies. If you have the right shaped instrument, you can do this. My only comment is be very careful with your hands and with your wrists. Whatever style you're playing, please be very conscious of what your body's telling you. Music doesn't seem like something that can hurt you, but you really can hurt yourself pretty easily because you're just doing the same thing over and over again. So you want, if your wrists start hurting because whatever position you're playing in, don't work through the pain. Stop, readjust. Your body's telling you that you're damaging your joints. I know someone who was teaching herself piano. She had a lot of wrist pain, and she's like, I'm a beginner. I just got to work through it. She ended up having to have surgery on her wrists because she hurt herself. So do not play through the pain. Your body's telling you you're doing it wrong. Adjust your playing position. And again, in your lap can be very comfortable. Try to keep your wrists straight. If you're playing this style, it's very, your wrists kind of start doing this. And I honestly, even when I'm playing like this, I don't play this way for a really long period of time because I don't want to hurt my wrists. So that's music. That's your music lesson for any instrument. Don't play through the pain. Stop, readjust. Okay. So let's talk about making sounds. What are your options? Oh, you can also play, well, yeah, let's talk about, I'm going to change my camera angle, hopefully. So let's see. Maybe we won't change my camera angle. I really apologize because we had I had a different setup last time I taught this class. I'm going to move my camera. I will not be able to see anybody. So Delphina, please ask questions or notify me if anyone needs anything.
Sure thing.
Because we're just going to have to do this the Southern engineered way. But I really want you to see my instrument up close. All right, can everybody see my psaltery pretty clearly?
Yes, it looks pretty clear.
Okay, cool. Now I'm actually going to compare to a piano because I said we talk about diatonic versus chromatic scales. And I'm a pianist. A lot of people are familiar with the piano layout. These psalteries are typically, these little 15-string toy psalteries we've talked about, are typically 15 strings G to G. You can change then, and they're what I would call a diatonic scale. So basically, on a piano, what is a diatonic scale? Kind of the simplest way to say is you don't have any black notes. Okay, there's your scale. And on these instruments, you can retune a string, a chromatic scale. Will include the black notes. Your instrument's going to be G to G. So 1 string per note. Often the tuning cards will recommend that you have F sharps and C sharps, F sharps, maybe C sharps. I personally tune mine typically without any sharps. I think that's good for most of the medieval music we play doesn't have accidentals, or maybe a B flat. Again, you can tune your B down to get a B flat. I know I'm getting into music. If you don't know music, that's okay. This is not required.
And Goldward was showing us the tuning card she was talking about.
Sometimes they come with a tuning card, which can be really helpful. Sometimes they come with songs that you can just slide under the strings and tell you exactly what to pick. And
just like that,
showing us another one. Yes. So anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to the psaltery. I hope that the strings are pretty much under my markings. Okay. You can put something under the strings to help you learn your notes. I will encourage you to not use this as a crutch. It's very easy to become dependent on this. I have marked my C's and my F's as red and blue. Typically used for harp, and I have continued that on my instrument as well. I think. Oh, wait, no, this goes till 10. I've got 15 minutes left, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So let's talk a little bit about plucking. You can use fingernails, you can use finger picks. I'm just going to talk about bare fingers for now because we're a little short on time. You can use feathers, which I have feathers and I forgot to bring them in. I personally like fingers. You have the most control. And so my suggestion for plucking is if you're using, typically you're not going to use your pinkies. You can, if you feel comfortable doing that. I'm taking that kind of from the harp tradition. Typically harpists do not use their pinkies. And you'll want to pluck a string with your middle ring and index. You'll want to pluck down. You can kind of pull, get kind of the pad on your finger. You can pull up, or you can also kind of push down and fall on the string below. And don't be afraid to like really kind of get in there with your strings to get you some good volume. The thumb, and you're playing mostly with the tips of your fingers on those 3 fingers, unless you're playing in a more vertical position, in which case it might end up being a little more of the side of your fingers. But the tips will give you the best sound and most control. With the thumb, you're actually going to play on this side of your thumb, not from the tip, because that's going to put you at a really odd angle. So put it at the side. And okay, so all that being said, let me see. What have I skipped over on my notes? Learning songs. How do you learn a song? You song by ear, an old tried and true method. Since you do not have chromatic notes, there are certain songs that will not be possible, and you just have to be okay with that. I have heard some really sad arrangements of songs that have a lot of essentially the black keys on a piano, and they're like, I'm just going to play it on my psaltery, and it doesn't work. You just need to admit defeat. Medieval instruments are limited, and part of the fun is learning how to work within those limitations. That being said, a lot of folk songs can totally be played on this instrument. A lot of simple songs, experiment. Also, you can play from music. That's pretty straightforward. Figure out which string corresponds to which note on the staff. You read music. No big deal. You can
I missed a question while you were plucking. Do you pluck up or down with the thumb?
Oh, thank you. You pluck up with the thumb. I meant to say that. So thank you so much.
Willis asked it, and Barb asked, which notes are missing?
Yes. So if you look at this, it's the black keys. So I've labeled all my notes. I've got my little funny keyboard here. It doesn't work terribly well, but well enough for this class. Can we see the whole keyboard? There we go. Now you can see all the notes I'm playing. Okay. You do not have these, what's essentially the black keys. So if you want to play Flight of the Bumblebee, which I can't play on this because it's really sensitive. Anyway, you can't do it. You can't do it. It's just not possible. You don't have those notes. So, for example, here's my instrument, my psaltery. That's all your notes. So,
will you play a major? Can you play a C major scale on the piano?
Yes. Oh, on the piano?
Yes. That's a major scale. It's one that most pop music is, but the scale she played on her psaltery doesn't quite sound that way. Would you play that for us again, please?
Well, yeah, I really
just the G to G.
I only have 10 minutes left. Okay. So yeah, a G to G scale. So there's different modes. This is technically, I believe, a Mixolydian scale.
Yes.
And you can play different scales depending on where you're starting. Dorian is very common for medieval music, which is where you start on D. It sounds kind of minor, but not really minor. Minor would be starting on A. Anyway, so
you're limited to that. And what about fingernails for plucking the strings to act as or plectrum?
That's fantastic. If you want to grow out your fingernails, that is an absolutely fantastic thing to do. If you want to cheat and use finger picks, I would recommend a brand of finger pick called Alaska Pick that slides on your finger like this. This, in my opinion, makes the best sound for this type of psaltery. Better than maybe a more typical, I've scooted it, okay, type of pick.
Where can you find like music, like period music to play on midis?
One really good source would be the Penzic Pile. You can Google search that, and you will get a whole document. You'll get a whole free download of dance music for the SCA. So that is a easy starting point. That is mostly Renaissance music, so there may be more notes that are not in your key when it comes to medieval music. Al Coffrin has
Cantigas de Santa Maria.
Yeah. I mean, Google search Cantigas de Santa Maria or Carmina Burana, but not the Orff version. Carmina Burana, Orff wrote an opera based on the words, but there's also some melodies. Cantigas de Santa Maria are fantastic. Thank you, Lisa. But yeah, you can Google search things. Al Coffrin also has a couple books of medieval tunes that are fantastic for this instrument, and usually fit on this very well. So again, I want to go over a few ways to play harmonies, and this is going to be really fast, and I apologize that I was not a good steward of our time. But I'm going to use a simple medieval tune called Orientus Partibus. So again, you can learn that from music. You can maybe even make your own cheats to slide under, maybe use a number system. So this tune, actually, we were talking about Mixolydian mode. This starts on the G. You can kind of tell in so since this starts on G and ends on G and keeps on coming back to G, you're going to call G your tonic. So that's the note that you're based on. This is very common for medieval melodies and even modern melodies. So a very easy way to add a harmony to this would be find the octave below your drone. Well, what's your octave below your tonic? What is that? An octave means 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is an octave. And intervals, we're going to talk about intervals a lot. You start on the string you're playing, you want to get to your interval from. So G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. And then you can just add that drone. Now, okay, I want to make it maybe a little more interesting. Fifths were very common harmonies in the Middle Ages. So that's going to be, I'm going to go from my tonic, my drone note, up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That gives me a D. So now I've made a chord. Modern day, you would play maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a very common in modern music. There was a lot of the Middle Ages where the third was not considered harmonious in the same way that we think of it. So typically you will want to drop that third to keep a medieval sound. That's kind of certainly the aesthetic that people think of medieval music, is not having the third. So in this case, do the exact same thing I did before. I've just got a bigger chord in my left hand.
What's the best way to find the good used zithers or lap harps?
You can check eBay. You can check one of my favorite places. It's very dangerous. Is a website called shopgoodwill.com. It's like eBay. It's an auction shop, but it's actually things that have been donated to Goodwill and tend to start at Goodwill prices. Again, keep an eye on shipping and keep an eye on, the fact that you will probably have to replace the strings, and that will be an additional cost. So, those are kind of my favorite places. Again, you might get lucky with Craigslist or something local as well. A lot of people have these instruments for whatever reason. I think they were popular in the past, and a lot of people don't know what to do with them. So you need to pick them up and play them in the SCA because they're really fun. So, all right, let me go through the rest of my little options for arranging very quickly. So we talked about doing a harmony, 2 notes. You can do this as kind of a rhythmic drone. I apologize. You can also do an alternating. You can also do, I like to do the octave if I have enough room, if my melody's high enough. I'll do an octave and also that 5th, which actually makes a 4th. 1, 2, 3, 4 between these notes. I use this as an argument for being able to, depending on the situation, use 4ths instead of 5ths. This is my own personal philosophy on doing these kinds of harmonies. If you're a diehard purist and you have reasons for not doing this, so be it. And I think it sounds nice, and that's what we're going to do. I think it's arguably a certainly legitimate historical-ish accompaniment.
Are you plucking the drone note when you hit the octave note in the melody?
And of course, you can do that with different rhythms as well. So these are just a few options of ways that you can arrange a medieval melody. Yeah, so you just so if you know about time signatures, this song is in 4/4. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just on all the ones, I'm doing my drone. Now you don't have to do that. You can, I mean, you want to have like a strong downbeat, but you might want to add, again, some rhythm.
Okay, I did want to let you know that it is 11:11 right now.
All right. Well, I guess that's going to have to be the class. And I really apologize again for not being more of a steward with my time.
We were all so excited about learning everything you knew.
I know.
We
Everyone
really
asked a bunch of
appreciate you.
really good questions.
So where do you get some dulcimers? Where did you get yours?
Which one?
I mean, where do you get them?
I got this on shopgoodwill.com.
Okay.
I got this one from shopgoodwill.com. I'm trying to remember. I got this one from Craigslist.
And eBay.
I got the dulcimer from an SCA event someone was selling. But yeah, there are real places you can get them. Let me, if you want to get this instrument, you can buy it either assembled or in kit form from, let me put a note, Hog-Nosed Psaltery from Harp kit.com. Okay, so there's a website for that one.
And I would like to encourage you to contact Elizabeth if you have any other questions. She is wonderful, a wonderful resource. And thank you again so much for attending. And Elizabeth, great job. Thank you so much. But we need to shut this down so that we can get it ready for the next class.
Yes, one quick comment. I will be teaching this class again at the Bardic War next Saturday, and I'll try again to be a better steward of my time, maybe come up with a handout to answer some of these questions. So thank you very much. Please stick around for Robin Carrot's class because it's a really fantastic class that I've taken before. And
it's going to be on a different link than this one, but it'll be starting in about 5 minutes or so. So I'm going to end recording now.
Okay, thank you.